Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Lettieri. I was putting together some family math videos and suddenly thought, gee, teachers are trained in certain ways to prompt students when we're having conversations with them. Perhaps parents would be interested in some of those prompts that start conversations and keep conversations going. While I think about these in a math context, really they can be used in a much broader context. So that's what this video is about, and we're going to jump in. So the first prompt is simply, what do you notice? And this comes in handy, like I said, across all subjects, all topics. It's a nice, non-threatening way to let students begin the conversation. They just need to talk about anything they notice. Even if this is a math task, what they notice at first may not be mathematical, and that's fine. As the conversation continues, the noticings can become more mathematical. But any place that they start with speaking about, communicating their own noticings is a great thing. Following up to some noticings, it's nice to then bring in, what do you wonder? What can we ask ourselves about whatever it is we're studying, looking at, considering, exploring? What do you wonder about that? Now, for young students, especially in kindergarten, that is not as easy a prompt as it is with older students. Oftentimes, they have difficulty discerning between a statement and a question, but this is a great time to also explore that. What do I mean when I ask you? What do you wonder? What's the difference between asking a question and making a statement? And for our younger learners, that's a really valuable time to have a conversation. So we notice, we wonder, that gets our conversations going. Then we can bring in some predicting. If this is a situation where something next is something to really learn about, it's nice to get a prediction from your child first. What do you think happens next? Or what do you think will happen next, depending on the context? Predicting gets our brains moving. It engages us as learners. It's a nice prompt to use. Moving on now. How is this the same as, or how is this different from, this idea of using comparisons? This brings about some of what's called grayscale thinking, this idea of categorizing things, thinking about relationships, thinking about how things are connected, how they are similar, how they are different. This is just a great thing for our brain to do. And this prompt can get that kind of thinking going. Now, will you necessarily be using all of these in the same conversation? No, not necessarily. These are choices you can make. Sometimes a combination of them leads to a rich conversation. Sometimes you'll just focus on one of them. This I was thinking about when students get stuck and they feel like they need to stop a conversation because they feel stuck. Oftentimes, I will start with the prompt, tell me what you have already tried. Just trying to get them to communicate what their thinking has been so far. This can also lead to the idea of, tell me what you understand so far. So you've tried something. What do you understand about that something? It gives the grown-up, the guardian, the parent, the teacher, it gives you a sense of where their head is at this moment in time. What understanding are they bringing to the table so far? And that's an important thing to know before you start trying to guide them in any way. I then like, rather than jumping in and making suggestions, to ask them what they could try next. Sometimes what they're willing to try next is right on track, and it will lead to some great learning. That way, the student's exploration continues without me forcing my views upon them yet. Tell me more about that is often a nice prompt. Let your student learn to not just tell you a little bit, as they often start off with just a 2-3 word answer, sometimes just a 1 word answer. But tell me more about that encourages them. They know you're listening and you're thinking about what they are saying. It puts the focus again back on their reasoning before we start to push our own reasoning and the way we see things. How can we find out more? This again, rather than putting you into that position of having to lay everything out, opens up this door to more exploration. You might find out more together, which is still better than them being sort of spoon-fed the reasons that we grew up with. Oh, that's funny. I thought maybe I had one more for you, but I seem to have stopped there at this time. I think this is plenty to get you started with conversations and building on conversations. If you found this helpful, I would love to hear from you underneath this posting and give me a sense as to what works, what doesn't work, what you would like to know more about. I'm happy to help. I hope this gives you a good start. Thanks for joining me.